Hey, River UU Fellowship. This is Brandon with Southern Energy Management, your solar energy partner. We're excited to be with you, even if we can only do it virtually today. But we do appreciate your continued sustainability efforts with your virtual sustainability fair. We hate that we can't be with you, but we look forward to seeing you after all this is over. I am going to go through today a brief presentation, a little bit of the basics about how solar works in North Carolina, as well as how battery backup might increase or enhance your sustainability efforts. And so I'm going to jump right in, and we really appreciate the chance to be with you today. Hope you enjoy. Thanks. Hey everybody, this is Brandon with Southern Energy. Gonna jump right into our solar and battery technology presentation about solar and battery in North Carolina. I'm doing a little video inside the presentation so you can get a look at me as well today. I appreciate the chance to be in front of you. You may see me move the little video box of myself around to maximize what's on the screen, but thanks for letting us be with you today. So we're going to jump right in. I'm going to tell you a little bit about Southern Energy, and then we're going to try to get through this in about 15 or 20 minutes so you don't have to watch forever. So Southern Energy, this slide's a little old, but Southern Energy is actually a team now of over 90 folks committed to both solar power as well as energy services, which all contributes towards our mission, which you can see is to improve the way people make and use energy. So we do that through both solar as well as energy services and energy modeling and consulting across single and multifamily businesses. We are also a certified B Corp, which means we are certified to operate a little bit differently, that profit is not our only goal, that we actually measure our impact according to a triple bottom line of profit, people, and planet. And we'd love to tell you more about that at a different time. But Ben and Jerry's, Patagonia, those are some bigger, more public B Corps that you may have heard of as well. So I encourage you to take a look at what a certified B Corp means and why that's important. We're going to jump right in on the solar portions. We'll start with solar and then we'll move to how batteries integrate. But in a nutshell, what we're looking for on your home or on any home is limited shade, a south-facing roof. That's due to the way that we get sun here in our part of the world. South-facing gives you the most efficient roof throughout the year. We want plenty of roof space, obviously, and our preference would be to have it less broken up. So, less gables and more of a straight surface like you see here. We can work around gables sometimes, but if it's a really broken up roof, it makes solar a little bit more difficult. And then a solar friendly electric utility. And so we're typically able to get a lot of this information just looking at satellite imagery, but we have some pretty cool tools that we use as well to really nail down your property and how good of a solar potential it can have. And we're still able to do that really well right now during quarantine, where we can do that from afar if we have to. In terms of how solar works, and this also ties into the utility portion, is solar works. This is a slide about net metering, but it also covers how solar works in general. The solar panels you'll see there, number one, create the energy, which is created in DC. The inverter converts it to AC power, then goes into your breaker box. You use the energy in your home, and then anything you don't use goes back to the grid. That is under a true net metering policy, which is what Duke and a few other utilities offer. And you get a one-to-one credit. So the same amount you pay for energy is what you get a credit for on your bill when you send energy back to the grid, functionally allowing the grid to act as your battery when you don't need the power that you produce. And that's really where the value from a savings potential comes in for solar. And we'll talk a little bit more about how that works with batteries and why you might want a battery or why you may not. But that is called net metering. That process of how the bill is netted out, a net basis of your energy use. And that's really one of the biggest keys is what we're looking for. If you're a Duke Energy or Duke Energy Progress customer, nothing to worry about. If you're on a different utility, we can talk about what that utility policy is and how a battery may or may not be a good option for you. So we're looking at the pieces of a solar puzzle. What we're really talking about in terms of a PV system is your modules, which is your panels, your optimizers, and inverter, monitoring, and then batteries, whether or not you need a battery. And so I'm gonna go through these pretty quick, but just so you get a visible or a visual understanding. Your solar panels, two basic types. We install a monocrystalline black on black. So these white diamonds and white lines you see are all going to be black on the panels we use. Monocrystalline REC is the company we're using, a Norwegian company. And that's going to give you a great looking panel that's also much more efficient than the older polycrystalline style. When you're looking at panels, just these are some things to take into account in terms of comparing panel to panel. Pretty much all panels now have a 25-year warranty for power production, which is your degradation there. So, at year 25, it still should produce 85% of installed capacity on a linear curve. But that's pretty standard across the industry, and our panels as well carry that warranty, which is a manufacturer warranty, but serviced through us, your installer. Each panel has an optimizer, which allows the panel and the cell. So those individual squares you saw on that last slide right here allows cell and panel level to talk with the inverter to maintain a highest level of efficiency for you. And the inverter is what actually does the majority of the work, the brains of the system, converting the DC power on the roof to AC power so you can use it. It gives you a monitoring system that you and we can see, both to monitor things as well as to diagnose any issues that may come up. And Solar Edge is sort of the primary central inverter system on the solar market. It comes with this system monitoring, which we offer both production and consumption monitoring, meaning that red stuff you see there is going to show you what you actually are using in your home, which can be a really helpful tool for diagnosing how you use energy and changing that. And the green, of course, is going to show you how your solar is producing. And that can all be customized based on week, month, year, even dates. You can customize it to line up with your billing dates, etc. Really cool tool to help you understand how your solar is working with your home. So that's sort of the basics of what a PV system involves, what we're looking for, and how it works. We talked about before net metering, how the energy goes back to the grid when you're not using it. That's without a battery. If you do add a battery, then it changes how your solar system works a little bit. And we're going to talk a little bit about that now. What you'll see here is what our battery preference is and what we sell a vast majority of with batteries, which is the Tesla Powerwall. You'll notice this one also off the inverter has a electric vehicle charger attached, which that option coming off the inverter, or we have some other options for go ahead and pre-wiring you for an electric vehicle, whether you have one or you might be thinking about one. But I'm going to kind of cover the basics of Powerwall. We are a certified Powerwall installer. We were one of the first two in North Carolina to be that. So we've been doing it now for several years, and we have learned a lot and feel really strong about our work with Powerwall and being a sort of top provider of theirs. So let's jump right into how it all works. Start with the tech specs. What you've got here and what you see is a couple different layouts of Powerwall. But in terms of tech, it's a 13.5 kilowatt hour battery with a 12.2 usable capacity and 10% reserve. That reserve is there to make sure that you have enough power to kick your solar back on. So if you're in a grid outage, your Powerwall is going to hold a reserve to be able to bump your solar back on the next day, assuming you're using that energy in the evening times, so that it can then recharge that battery. and you can see the 7 kilowatt peak and 5 kilowatt continuous power output. They do, each one provides about 21 amps, which gets into how many you might need depending on usable capacity in your home. And we'll get into that in a minute. But just file that away. And then size, about 4 feet tall, 30 wide, 6 deep, 250 to 270 pounds each. And they're scalable. So you can see here whether you're going to do a whole home or a partial home backup, you can stack up to 6, and we can go side by side. We can go front to back there. There's several different configurations. And they do have a warranty of 10 years at 70% storage capacity. A couple more things about using it. It's seamless backup, so there is no switch on or off. It just kicks on when the power goes off, and you're able to then use that as your main power source in the home. And it charges relatively quickly. If you weren't pulling any loads, I'd charge in about 2 hours. For folks that are pulling loads, which is more common because if you have one, you're going to be using it during an outage. It should charge up in around 4 to 6 hours. That's what we've seen, and I've got a little graph in here to kind of show you that. But yeah, even if you're pulling power off of it, it should charge up before the end of the day. So that's good news. And you do have access. This little graphic here is the Powerwall app that kind of shows you what all is happening in your home. So in terms of modes of operation, what we do have is you have several different options. I'm not really going to cover all these in depth, but you can read them here. And functionally in North Carolina, what we see the most of is backup only, which is scheduling it to only kick on in terms of a emergency, or self-powered, which is using your own energy after the sun goes down rather than pulling energy back from the grid. And that's sort of the way you're going to maximize your sustainability efforts, is if you're at a power wall, then the energy you produce during the day stays in your home. You use it first, so you're really maximizing what you're producing and using in the home. If you're on Duke Energy's grid, you're still going to get the value of that, the credit for that goes back to the grid, but it's a more grid tied rather than using it directly. And then you've got these other options, which are really designed for places that have on and off peak energy rates. And so where you might want to make sure you only use that energy during times when energy is more expensive. That's not typically an issue in North Carolina. But if you're on a different utility than Duke Energy, some of these other options would allow you to sort of maximize the value of your solar investment in solar energy. So the real question with the battery, obviously, is like, do you need it? And so I guess it depends on your goals is the simple answer. There's no simple or straightforward answer in most things, but from a financial perspective, you don't need it. If you're on Duke Energy's grid, there's no financial case for a power wall because the grid itself is going to hold your power. You're going to get the financial value of that power regardless. There's one little hitch in there where Duke does zero out your credits that roll over month to month. They zero those out at the end of May every year, but a power wall isn't going to really help you that much with that. So the real reasons you might want or need a power wall would be for energy security. So if you have a home business or maybe you have health reasons, that you would always need to have power to make sure there are no bad outcomes, then having a power wall would help because National Electric Code shuts down your solar system during a grid outage. And so with a power wall, you ensure that you're always going to have power that you don't have to worry about cranking up a generator or touching. It will automatically kick on and you keep running the things that you need it to run. Energy independence is similar to that. And although a lot of times folks who don't necessarily need a power wall, they don't want to rely on the energy utility, the regulated monopoly in our case. They would prefer to make and use their own energy. And so a power wall allows you to do that. to really be a sort of isolated unit. You're still going to be grid tied because it's pretty difficult to get off grid if you're already on it. But yeah, you can kind of quit your reliance on that energy grid and really rely on your own energy produced. And then again, savings. If you're on a smaller utility that's not giving you a one-to-one rate or have other interconnection policies that are not solar friendly, a Powerwall can be a nice financial piece to help you maximize your solar investment. And then off grid, it's not really designed for that. It could be done potentially, but you'd be talking about a massive investment to truly be off grid, probably approaching six figures between a big solar system and enough batteries to really take the average home off grid. So it's not something we see very often, or even folks are that interested in, as much as it is a way to provide security or independence or savings in specific circumstances. And if you do want one, how many do you need? It kind of goes to what your goals are during an outage, your energy demands during backup time. So what that means is if you just want to back up a few things, you're okay without having your HVAC or potentially being able to pretty much run anything you want, then a single Powerwall can provide you with a nice small amount of things that you could run. We build out a sub panel there that allows you to operate just whichever things we deem are going to be operational during a backup. One is not enough typically to power the big things in your home, like a HVAC or even a well pump in a lot of cases. So that's when you start talking about you want to get into two or more, is if you want whole home backup, or you want to make sure that you really can back up a majority of the big things in your house, then you're going to look at two or three most likely, which is the average we install for like a whole home backup. So that's something we would work with you on, depending on your needs and your preferences for energy demand. This is a cool grid that I'm not going to spend a ton of time on because it gets a little complex, but what you see here is basically a complete day of energy usage at a solar home with a Powerwall. And what you're seeing is a net positive home day here, where the green is the Powerwall energy. And so this is it's laid over the blue, which is the home usage here. And what you see is the Powerwall is providing all the energy through the nighttime. So you see that night. When the day kicks on here, the solar energy starts coming in, which is this yellow line. The sun's coming up there, and then it's starting to peak, so that it's covering the usage for the home, and it's charging the Powerwall, which has been depleted a little bit through the night. You see it charging up as solar's really rolling, and then the Powerwall gets full somewhere here around 1 or 2 o'clock. And then this gray line is exported energy. So you're sending energy back to the grid because you got more solar than you need to cover your energy usage. And then that all kind of tails off here around 5 o'clock. And the Powerwall is back to powering the house. So that's kind of what we're talking about in terms of energy independence, is solar, both, the previous day covering right here, as well as like the current day charging and then providing energy here, really allows this home to be truly energy independent, which is, the big reason a Powerwall is gonna get you through that. So when we're talking about cost, this is sort of a general cost outline for solar without a battery. So this is pretty accurate of today's costs. And what you've got there is, I'm not going to spend too much time breaking it all down, but this is a Duke Energy rebate that's eligible for folks at different times in the year. Currently, there's not one, but if you install later in the year, there would be one available. And then you do have the 26% tax credit, which drops you down to around $14,000 with an average first year savings of $1,000, and that increases yearly because of the rate of energy costs rising. You're going to be looking at anywhere from like a 12 to 14 year payoff on a system like this in terms of savings versus what you spent. That doesn't include average value added to your home, which I'll show you in just a sec. But that's kind of the basic numbers, so you have something to work from. In North Carolina, your numbers should fall somewhere in that $3 per watt range. If they're much off of that, if it's up around $4 a watt, it's way too expensive. It's not in line with market price. And if it's a lot lower than that, down to two and a quarter, you should be careful with like companies just underselling, not understanding margins, that type of thing, because what that means is that company's probably not going to be there in the long run to service warranties or take care of you if anything is needed. That's another pricing tactic. But yeah, $3 a watt should get you a nice, well-designed, well-run solar system. If you want to wrap in a battery, that's going to increase your cost quite a bit. So the Tesla battery down there at the bottom, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on the video, but one battery is 11.5 with solar, and they're 9,000 for an additional batteries. So this is a pricing for a 8K with 2 power walls, which would be a sort of average that we might see. And what it does basically, because you're still able to take the tax credit on the whole thing, and this rebate amount. Something to work from. So let's just go ahead and jump in then to what this looks like if we do add some batteries. If you take that same system and you add 2 power walls, you can see the system cost difference there. Both the turnkey and the final total go up by quite a bit. Not quite double on the turnkey, but pretty close. And then your actual final total is about double. That has to do with the rebate amount is not going to double with that system because the rebate's only available on the solar, not the batteries, but you do get to take the tax credit off the batteries. So what you end up seeing here is the same system with 2 power walls, which would cover a good majority of your systems, is going to cost you around 30 grand. And again, we're talking about finances. There's not a great financial incentive for that if you're on Duke Energy or net metering utilities, but it can provide you with energy security and independence that you may be looking for. So just from a cost perspective, this is what you should see somewhere in that range. Yeah, we can kind of move levers and add and take away power walls and array sizes to try to get it into whatever your goals are. But just wanted you to be able to see the difference there between 1 and 2. Just raw Powerwall costs, so it's 11.5 for the first one, 9,000 for any additional. I've got it down there at the bottom there under Powerwall cost, but a little hard to see on this view. And then if you put it in without a PV system, it's 12,500, and that has to do with we have to pull extra permits, extra man hours that aren't already involved when we're installing your solar system. So that's why that cost goes up just a little bit without it. And both on any system you install, we do have financing available. We'd be happy to talk the details about that with you. In terms of PV added to your house, 4.6% is the most recent study from Zillow. So that's going to average around 14 grand on a $300,000 house in value added. What that means is you're going to get that value out when you sell it. And then $1,000 average first year savings. That was from our systems last year with a $60,000 average family lifetime savings over 30 years. And that's because as the rate of energy increases, you don't pay that because you've secured, 8 kilowatt hour or 8 kilowatt solar system to provide you energy at a set rate. So you're mitigating the increased cost of energy with your locked in power rate. So you see the savings go up over the long run. And solar is a 30-year product that actually should last quite a bit longer than that. You just lose a little bit of efficiency. And these are a couple of just average systems, like to show you in terms of savings, production, energy usage, and then miles not driven every year. So, this particular almost 7.5 kilowatt system actually saves this person $1,200 a year in annual savings. Offsets 90% of their energy and is the equivalent of taking a little bit more than one car off the road a year, which is significant from an environmental perspective. And then you've got a similar one here, a 6.96, almost 7 kilowatt, slightly smaller system. And you'll notice it actually is producing a little bit less, but not significantly. And that kind of goes into different roof shapes and what the sun's doing on that roof. But it does offset 97% of this house. And so there's just a couple little examples for you to see what it looks like and some real numbers on real houses. Hate that we can't be there in person to answer questions, but you've got my information here. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. Our first role and love is to educate people about solar and renewable energy. So if you're not interested, feel free to give us a call. We'd love to make sure that you understand all this and can just be as educated as you can about helping people change the way they make and use energy. I will say right now, with the COVID crisis going on, what we're doing is if you do decide to have us take a look at your house and sit through a virtual presentation showing your home's energy capacity for solar, then we are going to make a $25 donation to the North Carolina Food Bank of Central and Eastern North Carolina, which is a big food bank that supplies lots of other agencies trying to address hunger. Just something small that we can do to try to contribute during this time. But we would love to talk to you. I appreciate the time today and look forward to being with you in person again soon. Thanks.